Whale washing on the beach often causes strong reactions and makes people curious. Stranded whales can do strange things, like explode. It's sad to see these amazing creatures in the water turn into lifeless fat on land. However, what is rarely noted is the loss of opportunities for carbon sequestration. Whales, especially baleen and sperm whales, are included in the list of the largest creatures on Earth. Their bodies are enormous carbon stores, and their presence in the ocean shapes the ecosystem around them. From the depths of the oceans, these creatures also help determine the planet's temperature. This is something that we have recently come to appreciate. Humans have been killing whales for centuries. The body of the whale gives us everything from meat to oil to whale bones. The earliest record of commercial whaling dates back to 1000 AD. Since then, tens of millions of whales have been killed, and experts believe the whale population may have declined by between 66% and 90%. When a whale dies, its body sinks to the bottom of the sea. All the carbon stored in their enormous bodies moves from the surface waters into the deep ocean and remains there for centuries or more. In a 2010 study, scientists found that before the whaling industry existed, whale populations, excluding sperm whales, would have sunk between 190,000 and 1.9 million tons of carbon per year to the ocean floor. That's the equivalent of removing 40,000 to 410,000 cars from the road every year. But when the whale carcass doesn't sink to the ocean floor because the whale was killed, the carbon is released into the atmosphere. Andrew Pershing, marine scientist at the University of Maine and author of the study, estimates that during the 20th century, whaling caused an estimated 70 million tons of carbon dioxide to be released into the atmosphere. It's a lot, but it's equivalent to the carbon dioxide produced by 15 million cars in 1 year. Currently, the US has 236 million cars, he said. But whales aren't just precious after death. The piles of excrement that these mammals produce are also very useful. Whales forage in the deep sea, then return to the surface to breathe and relieve themselves. Its iron-rich excrement is perfect for the growth of phytoplankton. Phytoplankton may be microscopic in size, but taken together, they have an enormous influence on a planet's atmosphere. They capture about 40% of all CO2, or 4 times the amount captured by the Amazon rainforest. We need to think of whaling as a tragedy that removes the enormous biological pump from the ocean. The presence of whales should double the productivity of phytoplankton and the ability of the ocean to sequester carbon, said Vicki James, policy manager at Whale and Dolphin Conservation, WDC. The disappearance of whales from the oceans also has unforeseen repercussions. For example, when the whale population declined, killer whales, orcas, which used to hunt whales, switched to smaller marine mammals such as sea otters. The otter population then declined, causing the spread of sea urchins, which were eating away at the kelp forests around the North Atlantic. The impact is on ocean carbon sequestration. This means restoring whale populations to pre-whaling levels could be critical in tackling climate change, sequestering carbon both directly and indirectly, and thereby helping to reduce the huge volume of CO2 emitted by fossil fuels each year. There are various proposals to achieve this reduction, including planting trees and stimulating phytoplankton growth by adding iron to the ocean, which is known as iron fertilization. But tree planting requires a scarce resource, namely terrestrial land, which may already be used as habitat or other valuable agricultural land. The positive of recovering the whale population is that there is a lot of room in the ocean, space that used to be full of whales. And unlike risky geoengineering techniques, conserving whales benefits not only the climate, but entire ecosystems. Whale carcasses provide a unique habitat for deep-sea species. Many of these are found only in whale carcasses. Research shows that a single whale skeleton can provide food and habitat for up to 200 species during the late stages of decomposition, said WDC's James. In 2019, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, published a report on the benefits of preserving whales in the oceans. This report is written in a way that is easy for politicians to understand, that is, it is priced in dollars. The study found that the total value of carbon absorbed by whales during their lifetime, the average large whale is worth more than $2 million, Rp 28.2 billion, with an overall global value of more than $1 trillion, Rp 14,000 trillion. This is excluding other benefits such as better fisheries and ecotourism. The economists behind this study are working on a project to turn these price tags from theory to reality through a mechanism known as carbon offsetting. The idea is to persuade carbon emitters to pay some money to protect whale populations, rather than invest in reducing their own emissions and help them achieve a carbon-neutral footprint. What we're doing is assessing the service that whales provide as they absorb carbon dioxide, said Thomas Cosimano, one of the economists who co-authored the IMF paper. This doesn't mean that whales don't do other things. It's just a benchmark that we can use to set a floor on what whales are worth in the future. It's a complicated scheme, but not impossible. The team has been working on a similar approach to protecting elephants from poachers in the tropical forests of Central Africa, which it hopes to implement by the end of the year. A Chilean charity called Foundation Mary is figuring out the basis for a whale-based carbon market. They installed acoustic buoys for early warning, which would monitor the location of the whales and generate alternative routes for ships. This project is believed to be the first project in the world to protect whales due to their ability to absorb carbon. The IMF study concluded that protecting whales should be a top priority in global efforts to tackle climate change. Because of the irreplaceable role of whales in mitigating and building resilience to climate change, their survival must be integrated into the targets of the 190 countries that signed the Paris Agreement by 2015 to combat climate risks, the author said. Later this year, a climate conference will take place in Scotland, a country whose beaches are home to species such as minke whales and humpback whales. With a carbon market for whales now becoming a reality, perhaps it's time to put these creatures on the agenda. The emissions from the trip required to report this story are 0 kilograms CO2. The digital emissions of this story are estimated at 1.2 grams to 3.6 grams CO2 per page. You can read the original version of this article on BBC Future under the title "Why Saving Whales Can Help Fight Climate Change."